Look over to Fox for a moment because the judge just ruled something rather negative for Fox. They can't go ahead and interview Reid Hoffman. Reid Hoffman is the tech entrepreneur that started LinkedIn. I'm over on LinkedIn. I have like 400,000 followers over on LinkedIn, but it's kind of hard to get the word out. Maybe it's because Reid is running it. I don't know. But Reid Hoffman is not exactly what you would call middle of the road. No, he's the one that bankrolled that woman who accused Donald Trump of rape. Remember her, the woman with all the cats? He bankrolled her lawsuit. And so he also bankrolled Smartmatic's lawsuit. Now, look, I mean, it happens, right? And it's part of freedom of speech. You can kind of put your money wherever you want. And there are plenty of people that have helped to defend, say, Donald Trump or Rudy Giuliani or others, right? They have funds that go for their legal defense. So again, you're putting your money where you want. And so it's not necessarily illegal or improper. I mean, maybe it looks a little bad that the tech entrepreneur is donating $25 million to Smartmatic's lawsuit. But at the same time, it's sort of a matter of free speech. I remember when Peter Thiel, right, helped with Hulk Hogan when he was trying to take down Gawker. So these things happen, but it was something that, understandably, I think Fox wanted to explore and learn more about when they were trying to determine the financial liability that they may have for Smartmatic, because Smartmatic is suing Fox News for $2.7 billion. That's a lot of money. I mean, I'm not going to make excuses for Fox. I think they made a lot of mistakes, and I was not there then, but they paid $800 billion, nearly $800 billion. To me, that's a big, big mistake, and it's bad for journalism to pay $800 billion to Dominion. And then, hey, you still got that Smartmatic thing hanging out there for $2.7 billion. Well, that's not exactly good precedent. If you already paid $800 billion now, is it, to Dominion? I think you're going to be on the hook for something. Anyway, they want to know how much they're really on the hook for. And so they had asked that they be able to depose and interview him and get his deposition. And the judge said, nope, not happening. You can't do that. Now, getting into this comes from Court News, a blog that covered this, because this didn't get a lot of attention. I think it's a rather relevant and important story. They wanted to interview Reid Hoffman because, one, he was investing $25 million into the case, and two, they wanted to get a sense of how much they really thought the company was worth. In other words, what is his payout on the other side? Was he an early investor in the company, etc.? He had a guy that was handling his investments, and that guy said to the Washington Post back in 2024 that he thought that the company basically could be worth $400 million right now. Okay, if Smartmatic were worth $400 million today, if it hadn't been for the reputational damage that allegedly Fox News did to it and others, then why would they have to pay out $2.7 billion? I think Fox wanted to try and understand that $400 billion valuation. And so if Reid is investing his money, it makes sense that they would try and probe that, right? Why, Reid, what were you getting out of this? Well, it turns out the judge said you can't interview Hoffman, but you can. So this is a little bit of a reward of some sorts, if you look at it that way. They can interview the guy who was running this Melhorn that was running the investments. He's the guy that told the Washington Post, forgive me, it's Jeremy Barr, who told them, Melhorn told Jeremy Barr is the reporter, forgive me, in 2024, they could be a $400 million company right now had it not been for the slander. So in light of that, and in terms of trying to understand the valuation, if Fox is saying $2.7 billion is grossly inflated, there's no way that this company would be worth that, then they want to be able to understand the financial insight. Maybe this Melhorn can help get them there. And the judge is saying, you know what, you can go ahead and you can interview Melhorn to get his financial insight. You can't interview Hoffman, though. So it's a little bit of a setback, but I'd say it comes with the silver lining, right, that they can go ahead and at least look more into this valuation. I think the problem is anytime you malign someone or a company, you're putting yourself at risk, especially if, in fact, your management team felt otherwise. So we saw in the Dominion lawsuit, did we not, that Rupert Murdoch and his sons did not actually believe, his son specifically Lachlan, that there was any malpractice that had gone on or any problems with the voting machines, etc. And yet they allowed for the information to go on the air. So why didn't they get in front of, say, my friend Lou? Well, I get it. Like, Lou is a lot to handle. Like, Lou has a big personality and a mind of his own, and may have had some editorial rights over his show. However, Fox still owned the airtime. So that gets back to management and what kinds of decision management was making. Don't forget, Tucker was sitting there going, I don't get this Sidney Powell. Like, I don't understand what she's doing. And yet they took Tucker off the air. I mean, I think that had to do with other things like J6 and pressure from Schumer, etc. But it all kind of happened around this time with Dominion and Smartmatic. About a day after the Smartmatic thing happened, they took Lou Dobbs off the air. They left Maria on. Maria's great, and I don't think that they're doing this with such bad intentions. I don't think that Maria or Lou or anybody that was reporting on this thought that, oh, we're going to go take Smartmatic down just for the heck of it. Just for the heck of it, because we want an excuse for the election. They actually believed in the reporting that they were doing. And when you have the president's lawyers out there saying things, it's actually somewhat relevant. Is it not? Is it not news? Now, Smartmatic is going to say, well, you ruined us over it. But maybe it's not actually the messenger's fault in this case. Could it actually have been Sidney Powell's or the lawyers that were saying this? I mean, why are you going to go after the messengers? That's what's sort of complicated, because as a journalist, you got to be free to report on things. Now, I don't mean like MSNBC going after some poor doctor and they can't figure out that he only performed 2 hysterectomies and they're going on and on about the uterus robber. I mean, that's a little bit different. But in this particular case, you actually have the president's lawyers. And so Smartmatic has a thing on their website right now saying that they're taking serious steps to defend their reputation and their attacks by actors trying to further their agendas and profits. These attacks don't just hurt Smartmatic, they damage the credibility and integrity of all elections and disparage the hard work of election officials, administrators, and poll workers. Again, this is a tough one. I remember when I was a young correspondent at CBS, this would have been in the year 2000, and I guess the other side was in, so it was perfectly fine to do things on voting machines, maybe when the other side was in. I actually did a story on Diebold voting machines, and I interviewed some software experts who said, yeah, that these things could be vulnerable, and you needed to do everything you could to secure them. So it got us back to like, well, why don't we just have paper ballots? Wouldn't that be the most secure way, where people have receipts, etc.? And I think that the reality is you can't just say we're not going to talk about this at all. You want to actually make sure that everything is safe and everything is on the up and up. Tulsi Gabbard addressed this head on just the other day, and I think it's an important soundbite to run, because she was in the cabinet meeting and she said something that it's like no-go territory. I get it right now. But again, I go back to me reporting on this in the year 2000. This sort of concern about software and voting machines has been around for a long time. And so this didn't just come out of nowhere. And I can understand why some reporters were in fact putting people on like a Sidney Powell or like a Rudy Giuliani. Perhaps the real issue, however, is why is it that Fox itself, if it didn't believe this to be true, would continue to allow the reporters to do that? Like, at some point, right, as a business, you need to take an editorial stand. Nonetheless, here's Tulsi. I think it's worth just hearing.
We're investigating. We have the best of the best going after this. Election integrity being one of them. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers for a very long time. And vulnerable to exploitation to manipulate the results of the votes being cast, which further drives forward your mandate to bring about paper ballots across the country so that voters can have faith in the integrity of our elections.
I mean, is it that controversial to say we want to make sure that the software is totally, totally, totally safe? We're not pointing out anyone in this particular case. She's just saying something that's been around for a long time. And she's not wrong. It has been around for a long time. I did the story for the CBS Weekend Evening News in the year 2000. So we've always been concerned about this. We shouldn't act like it's different just because it's Donald Trump. We should make sure that they're as secure as possible, that the entire process is as secure as possible. In fact, that's what this voter ID is about, is it not? I mean, that's what we're talking about when you've got the administration saying, hey, you know what, we're going to make sure that everybody who is voting in these elections, they can vote, that they have the proper identification, if you would, to vote. I mean, with Elon Musk finding that there were, $152 billion that he found in fraud, waste, and abuse, and that millions of Social Security numbers were being given out, you can understand that that causes some concern. And then the left is all mad about the Voter ID SAFE Act. I don't get it. Like, why wouldn't you want that? If nothing else, just to make everybody feel better about this entire process. You can't hide these things. Hillary Clinton, I told you about this last week, coming out with this wild tweet that she even had to shut down comments on because it was so nuts, basically telling married women, if you changed your name, you may not be able to vote. Gaslighting, fear-mongering, just like we saw at the top of the show with back in 2020, MSNBC trying to suggest that Donald Trump's administration was robbing migrant women of their wombs. I mean, it's bonkers to me that they get away with this. Who's going to sue her, by the way? Who's going to go after Hillary Clinton for her misinformation in misrepresenting things? That's pretty bad. I mean, the White House had to come out with a response saying, no. You know what? The SAVE Act is not about that. The SAVE Act is just there because you need an ID like anything else. You know what? You get a passport, you get a real ID, you get the license, anything. I mean, I guess if you were just married yesterday, you might need to come in with your birth certificate to prove because your name change hadn't gone through. But for Hillary to suggest this, and let me read it to you, are you a woman who changed your name when you got married? Congress is considering a bill that would make it much harder for you to vote. Call your rep. This is not a drill. And then update, the House just passed the Republican voter suppression measure. That's what she's calling it, that threatens voting access for millions of Americans, including 69 million women whose married names don't match their birth certificates. I mean, this is bonkers stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Again, unless you were just married like a few hours ago, you probably have an updated ID. You know, Rob, my partner at 76 Research, his wife and they're in Japan, and he's doing a ton of work for us, by the way, over there. Wonderful piece out just last night. But Japan, they own a lot of U.S. treasuries. So 76 Research, they're on the ground in Japan. Rob's working hard. His wife traveled with him. Guess what? She has the same last name. She has the same last, so it's on her passport, right? Like, it's on her passport, it's on her license, and yes, she can vote under it. So this is the kind of fire drill that they're putting America through, and it's highly irresponsible. But this is what they do in general, right? 76 Research, by the way, this market's crazy. We'll get back to the market in a short time, but if you're concerned about how to invest amidst all this volatility, I encourage you to go to 76 Research. Use my code word dollar. You can get it for $1 a month for the first 2 months. And it goes to $9.95, but there's a lot of helpful advice in there. And you know what? You want to take care of yourself. You want to be able to make money. You want to have some income at some point in your retirement. So with all that in mind, go get the basic newsletter. And for those of you that really want to roll up your sleeves, get the model portfolios. I can't stress that enough.